Okay, it is recording. Where did you go? Welcome everybody. And in the email, it said that today is February 22nd. And Pat knows a lot about numerology. She was going to briefly say what this day means energetically. Pat, are you ready to? You want to share a minute on the numerology of it?
Yeah, I could. Actually, I did a little more research too, and put together some more information, which I can either share today or later. But highlight is today is 2/22/2021, and which equals an 11, which reduces to a 2. Now, the inner power of a 2, especially 11, which is a higher resonance of the 2, the inner power to influence the masses and to bring light to humanity. It is called the spiritual messenger number. Today, we are sharing this spiritual message through working together in a peaceful cooperation. And a 2 represents or involves tact, diplomacy, cooperation, sharing, and through a spiritual way is the higher dimension. The 11 brings the double force of a 1. And a 1 is action, innovation, and bravery. So we have the 2 1s in the 11, bringing an extra dimension to a 2 energy or vibration rather, which means action, innovation, and bravery coupled with cooperation and spiritual awareness. And it's interesting of what we're trying to do, like today or any of these meetings that we get together. And I thought it'd be interesting to know that, which I hadn't even thought about till I looked it up again, the 1900s was a 1 century, which brought many new things and innovations. A 1 vibration is that of creation, energy, moving forward, innovation, boldness. Now then, and you look at what happened in the 1900s. We had a lot of new innovations, technology, changes, a lot of change in that 1900s. Now going into the 2000s that we've been in, that's the number 2 vibration, which brings in a need for spiritual purpose, designer for awareness of spirituality and strengthening that whole peaceful coexistence is kind of one of the themes now that we're going into. And think about it. We now, because of the technology from the 1900s, the whole world is much more in communication. We're much more interacting among each other than we ever did as time went along. And the need for cooperation, tact, diplomacy, working together, and also looking at the fact that there's been a big growth in spiritual awareness, especially into this century. So it's a national and world level that the two is going to be influencing all through the 2000s, okay? And interesting enough, a true 2 also brings in challenges and opportunities to strengthen, enable these virtues to come out. So even on a personal level, the 2 vibration, often like 2 years, the year that if we have a personal year that's a 2, etc., brings in the need and opportunities to grow with cooperation and compromise and working together. So, and there is that spiritual dimension, especially with the 11. So I just wanted to bring that in as a possibility for us to consider that there is a whole movement going on numerologically for us in this direction.
Great. Thank you. And
question down here, our hand.
Oh, yeah, Carol.
Well, I think it's interesting. All that 2 was bringing in, we are being restricted from doing, from cooperating, interacting, and all those things have been stopped for us.
Well, last year, 2020, one of the things that did come in was the need for people to work together in a crisis. That was a very strong 2 year. And it was also a 4. The 2020 was reduces to a 4, which means bringing that dimension into the physical world, into a foundation on a very physical level, working together. So personally, I kind of think for numerology, that was exactly what was happening last year. This year, it's interesting, we're going to be finding, this is a 5-year, actually is a whole year. So one of the challenges this year is people want to move forward, more of an urgency to move forward, to change. 5 is a year of change, but there's also the need for patience. That's one of the lessons that comes in a 5-year. So during this year, we're going to feel the desire and need to move forward again more. And change will be big in this year. Sudden changes, that's a 5-year. But at the same time, this patience and overriding all that is the 2, because that's the century. So thank you for bringing that up, Carol, because I think that's an important thing to understand, that each year as a year brings in a different phase of the 9 cycle. And that's an interesting thing to look at sometime, is understanding more about the numerology aspect and how it can be helpful to us in understanding that. Thank you.
All right. One thing that just before we really get started, that this Zoom is going to be a little different than last ones, is that the last time we had a session, that it was unanimous that this was to be a session on helping everybody connect with a special being, maybe a couple beings, so that can move them forward in doing this Galactic Ascension Earth portal work. And so that's why this is a little different steps that we're doing in different topics. And so also because of that I am going to be emailing out, along with the replay of this to everybody, is to send a video and information on the 7 Earth chakra points locations, so that people can practice sending and awakening those 7 chakra points for the planet to strengthen them. And also I created 2 new YouTubes, and I'm going to send the links for that, and they're specifically on the understanding behind it and the steps to do the Galactic Portal Awakening. So I'm going to send that so you have some stuff to work on if that's something that that you wish to do. Okay, as we get started, Pat, do you want to just open sacred space before we get into it?
Okay, I'd like us all to close our eyes and put our awareness into welcoming and inviting in all of our spiritual guides, teachers, galactic friends, higher spiritual connection, because when we are joining together, we are doing this from a spiritual perspective. So I'd like us all to put our awareness in that direction. And we invite in all of these beings. It could be shamans, nature spirits, whatever beings that exist. And there's many of them on the other plane around us, dimensions and vibrations, to come together. And in a safe place, we invite the angels, Archangel Michael, and what other guides are there to also keep us safe, grounded into what we're doing. And that everything that happens today is for our highest good, physically, mentally, emotionally, and spiritually. Thank you.
And what we feel is important, and that the Galactics have said, was it's always good as you're doing this light work that we're doing, is to have like almost a dedicated, special protective spirit, being of light, to be with us when we do this work, because it's very powerful work that we're being asked to do to help in the ascension. And having these very wise and protective beings with us, helps keep our sacred space sacred. And it also empowers us because we're working with these higher frequencies of light and energy. And so as part of that, I'm going to do a guided meditation to basically connect with a special spirit or protective guide right now. So you may also be working with one right now, but I ask you to just be open as I lead this, and just notice maybe somebody else will show up that can be of assistance and grow your team. So just be open, because you are inviting a new galactic spiritual being. And a lot of these spiritual beings, like I said, are like, that we know, like Archangel Michael, is a very protective being. Some people call him Jeshua, Jesus. So, or power animals. So with this, you're specifically going to be asking to be having a new partner that is bringing a higher frequency, very protective energies, and guiding you for the ascension work that you're going to be doing. So with that intent, just be open to receive whatever it is. And it'll just be a few minutes to tap into this new spiritual team member. So as you got your eyes just closed and starting to go in to a quiet inner space, the inner peaceful oneness with your soul, your divine light. Perhaps seeing and feeling your light, your energy grow brighter, stronger. And with the intent of connecting with a new or reinforcing a current, very special, spiritual, protective light being to be with you, to assist you on your ascension work. I'd like you just to imagine in your mind's eye that you're walking up to a beautiful Greek temple. Perhaps it's one that is like the Parthenon, the Acropolis with tall pillars, beautiful white sacred temple. And just imagine being in front of this beautiful, tall, white temple. And with the intent to make this special connection, just imagine walking in to the inside of this temple, into a very powerful, sacred, peaceful place of light and energy. And as you are in the inside of this special temple, a being is now going to appear, make itself known to you, either visually or through feeling the essence of it, or just noticing a change in your body, perhaps your energy field, feeling a shift as you meet this new spiritual guide and protective being. And as I'm quiet for a couple minutes, just communicate, greet, talk with, and become friends with this new special helper, understanding what its role is, and perhaps asking for any guidance as you now make that connection. And remember the energy signature of this special being, what it feels like. Perhaps if you can see what it looks like, so that when you reconnect with it, you'll be able to strengthen this wonderful new connection. So now thanking this being and asking it to be with you the rest of this Zoom session, and especially thanking it for assisting you in your ascension and your light work that you are doing. So when you're ready, just come back. If anybody wishes to share, they can. They can unmute themselves if you want to.
I can share. I immediately saw a winged being, golden, gold white, and had a feminine aspect. And she was just hovering with these great big wings. And she told me her name, and she said she was from an avian planet where they had a temple to Great Central Sun, and that she's the temple queen for the white gold ray, which is the Great Central Sun ray. And I work a lot with that ray, so that was kind of nice to be with a temple queen. And her energy for me that she's helping me with is to hold a sense of lightness, but also sort of an equanimity and ability to hover in the midst of activity or chaos. So that all feels really, really good and really, really helpful. Thank you.
Beautiful.
Thank you.
Beautiful. Anybody else? Well, I'll just say I had a sort of half humanoid and half dolphin appear, and I've never really worked with dolphins like that. So I'm excited to see what that's going to grow into.
And what appeared for me that was a little different but similar was a huge beam of light, a being that was all white light, but very large, very tall, very loving. Kind of, I already have my guides that are right there with me all the time anyway, so this was just kind of another manifestation, I think, of interesting. I always forget to ask. Trying to learn that from Deb. But yeah, that was, it was very nice too for me. I love that. If no one else has anything to share, I'd like to bring a little something for just a minute. One of the things that I do when I start into my journeying or being present is I bring up a lot. I bring up heart. I bring up a lot of love in my heart, so that I feel this strong, loving feeling in my heart and radiate it out. And it seems to, and then I, ask my guides to come in and be with me anyway, because, they're right there. But it seems, and also a white, beautiful white light comes out and around me. And I feel a lot of protection from that as well. A lot of safeness with that comes from that. Because I think when we're in our heart and that energy radiates out from us, it keeps us, connects us more quickly, I think, with the beings around us as well.
I think it also connects us in sort of the right way in terms of humble and grateful and all of those things, instead of just blasting out there and grabbing for a guide, which I know I can do that.
Yeah, I think it's a more, I love the gentleness of that and the piece of that. Yeah.
One thing I find is very important is to do what you can to raise your vibration before you do this work and connect with them. You've heard me say this a cajillion times, but it's like very important, because when I was working with this in starting 2011 with these higher beings, that if my vibration was lower, they would tell me, he said, hey, we're having trouble coming in. raise your vibration so that it's easier for us, because it's easier for us to go up in vibration, and it's hard for them, you know, because they're such high energy to come down to the earthly level. So, you know, that was, you know, kept reinforcing, raise your vibration so that you can sort of meet in the middle with them. And so that's why it's always good to do whatever work you can. And also the importance of maybe having a sacred altar that you work with, because it is producing and helping to sustain and hold these higher vibrations, so that whenever you do a session, that you are tapping into the field, called the morphic field around the sacred altar. So it also makes it easier for you to tap in. That's why, you know, we have these 2 altars in my house that they help do that. They raise the vibration along with us, and it really strengthens it. So having an altar is very important on that also. So anybody else want to share?
Well, I'd just like to bring in something with that, is setting up a simple crystal grid. You know, it doesn't have to be a huge thing. It can be a small crystal grid. And if people aren't familiar with that, I think it's something we should share at some point, more ideas of how to do that. But that also, having it next to you when you are ready to do this kind of stuff is really helpful, because it does match, and that's what our altars are. They're larger crystal grids. But I think sharing how to set that up too, and the different ways that we do it, might be very helpful, because I think having even on a little table next to us, it doesn't have to be large, is really helpful. And then you put some awareness into it and communicate, you know, give love to those crystals and ask for their help and guidance. It's really helpful as a mini portal to get started or to continue to work with.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, due to time, we probably need to move on, because was going to do it in 4 quarters, but time's always gets ahead of us. So I want to talk very briefly, because he's going to talk about, you know, various galactic, or the term extraterrestrial beings. And I like to use the term galactic and not extraterrestrial. It's got sort of a, you know, a connotation, sort of a negative, ooh, ETs. But if you say galactic beings of light, it's like, ooh, that sounds, you know, it sounds friendlier. So I just want to mention just a very few, and then we'll get to the ones that we specifically work with. One, you've heard of the Pleiadians, that, you know, from the Pleiadian star system, and they're one of the originals that help our planet and to bring its spiritual transformation. And they have typically Nordic features, you know, tall, blonde hair, blue eyes. And of course, they're a lot more spiritually developed than humans. Another one is the Syrians. Again, they are very advanced, a lot more than the human civilization, and they're here to help. And they're from the 4th and 6th dimensions, and very wise, spiritual, very loving and empathic people. And they're also associated with the dolphins and whales and Christ consciousness. And it's said that they have also worked a lot with the Mayan and the Egyptian civilizations. Plus, I read that they also helped when Atlantis was going down, that they helped in the evacuation of the Atlanteans. And they've also, you've heard about the Dogon tribe in West Africa, that they appeared as like in the dolphin form. So they're another one. And the last one I'm going to say is like the Octurians. Ever heard of that? Very high, powerful, multi-dimensional race that are very peaceful, loving, that are here to help us. And other ones, you know, don't need to go into detail. There's a lot on YouTube and in the web. The Lyrians, the Orions, the Andromedans, you know, and then there's also the lower vibration, the non-humanoids, you know, the Greys, the Zeta Reticuli, the reptilians, and we do not work with those. It's like, no way. You know, and that's why, you know, you set your parameters of the type of beings you want to connect with. And so you just work with the higher vibration ones. So what we've noticed in our sessions is that the galactic beings we work with are very benevolent, heart-centered. They are in more of a humanoid form. You know, look a little different, but it's more of a humanoid form. And they want to assist us in us awakening in our ascension process. So that's one thing that they like to do is to be with us, to assist us, not to really do it for us. You know, that's one thing they've said a lot of times, is not to do it for us, but to assist in our own awakening. And a lot of them that they use spaceships, but a lot of them do not need spaceships because they're such high vibration. They will just appear as light and energy. So you will notice when you start working with these that, you know, maybe sometimes you'll go up to a spaceship where they're at, but a lot of them, you know, they're so highly evolved as light beings, they don't need the ships. And so that's one thing that, you know, we got to understand on that, and that they are without a form, and that's why we really got to raise our vibration to be in that type of light. So the three main types we've worked with is the Galactic Council, which deals with many matters in the universe from many galactic dimensions, various galaxies, and they are here to help and work in more of a collaborative way with the planet. And interesting, when we worked with them, we noticed we had a reserved seat on the spaceship when we was there. And so that was really interesting. And then also is the Galactic Federation, and they are working again in a collaborative effort with many galaxies and many different galactic races to assist humans. And I personally, on the east side of Tucson, Arizona, between where the Catalina Mountains and the Rincons come down, that's where I've always connected with them, is in that far eastern part. And they are watching over the evolution of this Tucson Green Valley 6 portal area and bringing helpful energies to that. Also the third one is called the Watchers. And that's when me and Pat, we first started connecting with them, that some of the write-up, and I'm not really sure, you know, the written words on the website fits them, but, you know, they can be derived, they said, from the book of Genesis of the Nephilim, and thought of as human angel hybrids. And also from the book of Enoch in the Torah talks about the Watchers. But it also said that they're one of the oldest species in the universe, and their job is to observe and compile knowledge and information about evolving universes, basically without interfering, just more observing. But they also are bringing knowledge to the evolving races. And so when we first met them, they had like pointy heads, and we sort of snickered to each other as, like, you know, on the Saturday Night Live, that thing about the, what did they call them?
We call them the cone heads.
The cone heads, yeah. And so me and Pat, we go, we better not call them the cone heads. You know, that's not cool. So we don't say that. But they had pointy heads, and we've since found some pictures that look from ancient Sumeria, and they looked like the conehead beings that we saw. And the interesting thing that a lot of times they've been in like long white robes, and they were definitely humanoid shape, and that they have also been teaching me to how to work with activating galactic portals on Earth. And we noticed that it was the night after we first connected with them that I noticed my light body field was out into infinity to a place, and it sort of like flipped me out a little bit. Whoa, it's never been like this. I had to call up Pat and say, guess what? And, you know, it's like there's such high vibration. you know, that we're working with. So those are the three: the Galactic Council, the Galactic Federation, and the Watchers that are assisting us in this process. And so I'd like to turn it over first to Pat to talk about how her interaction with all these are, and then over to Wanda, since we're all working with them, and just to share a little bit of what it's like, and also maybe, besides what it's like to work with them, what could be beneficial pointers in working with them, like Pat said, come from your heart, be in a high vibration. So Pat, you want to start?
One of the things I noticed is that like the ones on the east side you're talking about might start out looking almost humanoid, but then they can transform into a little higher vibration or dimension, become just beings of incredible light and love and energy. I mean, it was one of the nicest experiences I've had being with them when they do that. So that I think the humanoid form is on a certain level, but some of those beings, of course, can raise to a higher dimension as your vibration also goes to be able to be with that. And they can become just beautiful beings of light and energy. So I think that's a really interesting thing too. And I think one of the things that some of the beings that I've seen that are humanoid are very bright, very shiny, very light, white, light, shiny beings, even in a humanoid form. So, and I think it's important too to realize that when they talk about like the Pleiadians looking a certain way, it's really not a racial thing. I think in humans we think racially, and it has nothing to do with that at all. The beings are very varied in what they look like, just like we are, as far as if we are more in a physical kind of a mind dimension. When we're talking about a lot of these, we're talking about going into a slight a dimension just above this physical dimension of what we're experiencing and seeing. And that's why there's a lot of variety of what we might experience with the beings. But I think for sure, when we keep our heart center and we keep our attention very up and doing that, preparing before we do it, like Deb was talking about, is very important. But at the same time, like some of the beings that I've seen and experienced have been myself in a past life, as another being, like in the Mayan area or Inca area, for example, recently. And there's other beings that can appear to you too. Shamans, for example, we have with our portals, I've seen, shamanic type Indian beings, but are very shiny white again, because when they go into that dimension, things become on a very different vibrational level, but they're very real, like to be. And there's beings of different shapes that you can have. There are some like insectoid actually that are good beings, that are okay ones to come. The whole dolphin type, the insectoid. I think the ones that we are generally kind of like swerving away for, don't tend to go to, are the negative reptilian groups. But other than that, we've seen like the Watchers. It's interesting how she and I both experienced them at the same time when we first did this, and it was more of a pointy head. And the Anunnaki in the Sumerian, when we looked at pictures, they had kind of like that kind of hat on, which is actually, I think, a representation a little bit of what they may wear. So we're not sure, but there's a lot of different beings you can see. So I can't remember if there's anything else that we've experienced, Deb, that I've forgotten.
Sarah has a question.
Oh,
or
yes.
comment.
Sarah,
I was just wondering if one of you could clarify just a little bit the difference between Galactic Council and Galactic Federation, possibly.
Okay, when I connected with the Galactic Federation, it was before I even started working with these altars and the portals and all that. It was a couple years working with the 6 portal points in the Tucson, Green Valley area. And I would see them out on the east side, and they were just a bunch of starships, that were a collective, and that, but I've also seen them when I was at Mount Shasta and working with the ETs that are in the Black Butte, that cinder cone by Mount Shasta. And so that they've been various places, and they are that more of that, like a federation of all different of ships. Whereas when then later we started working with the Galactic Council, that it's every time I've been there, it's been one big ship and all these beings that are look different, sort of like in the Star Wars where you go in the bar and they all sort of look different, but they sort of, they were more humanoid. They weren't really far out as in that movie. So it was more of a specific location and set of beings. It was like there had a different purpose between the Galactic Council and the Galactic Federation. The Federation went everywhere through the universes and was, you know, working with all things, where the Galactic Council seemed more of a spiritually based, a higher wisdom, than where the Galactic Federation was working more like with more nuts and bolts or technology or systems, something like that. That's my take of it.
One of the
Go ahead.
One of the things I experienced with, I'm not sure which it was, it sounds like it might have been more the Federation, where we were all like sitting there around, you know, and looking down onto like the galaxies, into a planet, watching a planet. That's, I think there's another group that does that. I'm not sure, but I went to that one. And I was in my form that I go into, which is a white, almost angelic form with almost like wings, because that's one of my roles, is to kind of be a protector. And I would be in that form when I would be in that council. But they were like humanoid, most of them, not all of them, you know, that I saw. So I'm not sure how you name it, what it was, but, and also the group that you're talking to. Well, anyway, that's one of the things. Okay.
And also it's interesting that a couple times, like when I'm talking to the watchers, that I would become one of the watchers. It would appear in the living room, setting off to the side of it, one of the altars, and you could see it. And then I turned into that same shape, and I felt myself as a watcher. And so this is maybe a theory that, you know, maybe Pat and Wanda and me we're connecting with them because we are part of them, that are multidimensional. That's one of ourselves, as that we're just remembering that that's a segment of us that have come to do the job as one of them, but making the interface between the humans and them. That's just a theory on my part.
Well, I think also when we go into a different dimension, when we're going into these different dimensions, we take on the form that we operate on in those dimensions. You know, that's what we look differently in some ways, because we're taking on a different form in a different dimension, because we have a different role to play when we go to those dimensions as well, I think.
Yeah. Wanda, do you want to talk about these beings?
Sure. My experience with them in the last few months, and this has just started in the last few months with me, they will not come to you unless you openly invite them in. They don't just come barging in and you know, attack you like the negative ones do. They are gentle and kind and loving. There's a tremendous difference there. You can tell the difference. And they wait for you to invite them in. And then it's like the floodgates open once you accept them. You know, it's like, oh, okay, you need to get a higher vibration, or you need to do this, you know, to help ascension, or you need to do that to help ascension. You know, they're not afraid to let you know what needs to be done, as long as you're willing to be a part of it. And you're talking about the watchers. They've just started coming in for me, and I had one really tall one. It looked like a string bean, for lack of a better word, but very light body. And they said, I'm finally at the vibration now that they can communicate with me, and they will be communicating with me a lot more now. So that's something new for me, and it's really exciting. But I just have to reiterate that they will not come in unless you invite them. Do not be afraid of them, because they're so loving, and they're here to help us. And they've been waiting a long time for us to get to where we are for helping with ascension. And it's just it's going to be like the floodgates are just starting to open. It's going to be a tremendous amount of energy coming in the next 1 month or two, and we're all being told that. So
You know, one of the beings I didn't share that I've seen that is my favorite, one of my very favorites. They're very tall, very thin, humanoid somewhat. I mean, with the arms, very tall, and kind of almost like a grayish bright, like almost like a grayness to them, because they're like not real delineated. It's another energy pattern that they have that I'm very close to, that I love, that I have a connection from the past with very strongly. And so there's different forms that they do take that are really cool. And being open, you can't have any preconceptions. Like you said, just invite them in. Also angels, angelic beings. You can invite angelic beings to come in and ask for if any angelic beings would like to come in and, help out or be present as well. And then it's interesting how different angelic beings will be as well, what they'll look like and what they'll bring with them as well.
There will probably have been a lot around you. You just haven't noticed them, because they'll stay off to the side and, just kind of quiet and watching you and waiting for the right moment. And so they've probably been with you for many lifetimes.
Yeah, they talk about what they always have, your guardian angel. I think that's actually kind of a folklore, or it's a indication or leftover of the knowledge that there are angelic beings watching out, and spirit guides, whatever you want to call them, of different sorts.
And also the beings that have came through these altars here are a lot of times the Egyptian, Thoth, Anubis, Isis. Again, coming through, especially when we've connected with Atlantis and working with those kind of higher energies, and different ETs, like say the local ancient shamans and the nature spirits that are working with the Tucson Green Valley area, of really accelerating that. And the one thing that I guess the points we do is come into a session with them, like say with a very loving, open heart, and then take a minute or two to raise your vibration as you can, to get centered, go into that peaceful space, and then also give them the intent that you are there to be an instrument of service to the divine plan, to Earth's ascension, to also the galactic ascension, because what we do here affects them. And this is really important, is to then just be open to what appears. Like when we do a session, we have no clue what's going to happen. I mean, the blank slate is like, I don't know what's going to happen. And we don't. It's just, we just feel, we just are open, and then it just happens. And then what is really neat is when all of us, we see and feel the same thing. It's like just total confirmation. And so it's like, again, it's just being open to what they direct, because what will come to you is what is in your highest divine good. And then also be very grateful when, they're done. And when you say goodbye, gratitude is very important. So those are the main points. If there's not anything else, we're going to go to the last meditation. Does anybody else have something to add? Okay. So this last meditation, you've already connected with a sacred and a protective spirit being as a helping one. And this time we're going to set the intent to be open for your highest divine good to connect with a galactic being if it's meant to be. Like say, you just be open to the process, to what shows up. And with that intent that you do wish to be of service on a galactic level, you know, to help Earth and to help Earth's connection with all these other galactic beings of light out there. So that's the intent. And we've already raised our vibration. So we just get in a quiet space again. And what I'm going to do also is, we've only got about 7 minutes. So when I lead this guided meditation, when it gets at 12, if you're really connecting with whatever being you're going to be connecting with, I'm just going to quietly sign off so you can continue connecting with this being if you wish. So it should be really a quiet, peaceful time for you. Just enjoy connecting with either a new galactic being or reinforcing one of your other beings you work with. Just whatever you receive is what you receive. So as we close our eyes and just go into that quiet space, you can call forth the spiritual and protective being that you connected with at the beginning if you wish, or any other spiritual helpers like power animals, spirit teachers. It's always good to have call in your family, your team members in this spiritual work. So as you continue to focus within, feeling your light, feeling the source of your divinity, and raising your light, expanding your light, perhaps outside of your skin perimeter, to just be light and energy, or whatever feels peaceful and right for you. Being receptive and open to a new or strengthening an existing higher galactic spiritual being. So as you focus on your energy field, feeling it expand and grow brighter, now allowing your field to feel perhaps a shift where you're at, a shift in the room, a shift in your energy field, as perhaps feeling another being of light come into your presence. And if you feel this shift of another presence around you, you welcome it like you would a new friend. And then you start communicating, getting to know it, and it gets to know you. And so with gratitude in your heart for this connection, just continue now making this wonderful new friendship with this new spiritual helper, this galactic spiritual helper. As I'm quiet for the rest of the session, and then we'll quietly end, you can continue connecting as long as you wish on your own with blessings of love and light.